Captain Lee Daho stood on the bridge of the Jeju Hope and watched the strange ships appear on his screens. The Korean exploration vessel had been mapping water-rich planets near Kepler 442 when these unknown craft suddenly surrounded them. Daho had spent 20 years in the Korean Navy commanding submarines before joining the space program, and he knew when he was being watched by something that did not want to be friends yet. Dr. Park Minji rushed to the bridge carrying her datapad filled with notes about the ocean worlds they had been studying. She was the ship's marine biologist and had been excited about finding so many planets covered in water. Her dark eyes were wide with worry as she looked at the alien ships on the view screen. Engineer Kim Won-ho followed behind her, wiping grease from his hands after working on the ship's water recycling systems. The alien ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They looked like metal triangles with no curves anywhere, and they moved in perfect formation around the Jeju Hope. Ambassador Cho Hyeri arrived on the bridge and immediately began setting up her translation equipment. She had been trained for first contact situations, but had never expected to use those skills so far from Earth. Suddenly, the main screen lit up with symbols and numbers. The aliens were trying to communicate using mathematics just like humans had always hoped would happen. Cho worked quickly to respond with the same mathematical sequences. Prime numbers came first, then basic addition and multiplication. Within an hour, they had established a simple communication system. The first real message from the aliens made everyone on the bridge freeze in shock. The translation appeared on screen in broken English that said, "You come from Death World, why you not? Dead." Daho looked at his crew and wondered what the aliens meant. Earth was not a death world. It was beautiful and full of life. He sent back a message asking them to explain what they meant. The alien response was longer this time. "Your world 71% water. Water means death. How you survive on Death World? We are Thaxians. We study your ship. You should not exist." Dr. Park stepped forward and asked to send a message. She typed carefully about how humans loved water and how life on Earth came from the oceans. She explained that water was not death but life itself. The response from the Thaxians came back quickly, and the translation made them all gasp. "Impossible. Water worlds are forbidden. No life can exist with so much water. You lie, or you are not real beings." Engineer Kim laughed and said this was like talking to people who were afraid of air. He had grown up on Jeju Island, surrounded by water his whole life. His father had been a fisherman, and his grandfather before him. The idea that anyone could fear water seemed crazy to him. Ambassador Cho suggested they send visual proof. She activated the ship's database and transmitted images of Earth, pictures of oceans and lakes and rivers, images of people swimming and diving in sailing boats, video of children playing in the waves, and fishermen bringing in their catch. The Thaxian response took a long time to come, and when it did, the translation was filled with what looked like panic. "Stop sending death images. How do you make beings enter water and not die? This is impossible technology. Water touches skin and beings die instantly. You show impossible things." Captain Daho realized they had discovered something incredible. An entire alien civilization that was terrified of water. He thought about all his years commanding submarines deep under the ocean, and how natural it had felt. These Thaxians had probably never seen swimming or diving or any water activities in their entire species' history. Dr. Park was getting excited as she understood what this meant. If aliens feared water, then thousands of water-rich planets across the galaxy might be unexplored. Worlds that humans could easily colonize and study. She sent another message explaining how humans could hold their breath underwater and how they had built submarines to explore the deepest parts of their oceans. The Thaxian commander, who called himself Vorthak, finally agreed to meet them in person, but only if they came to a dry space station far from any water. He kept asking how humans had survived on a world that was mostly covered in the most dangerous substance in the universe. Kim prepared the shuttle while making jokes about bringing water guns to scare the aliens. Cho told him to be serious because this was the most important moment in human history. These Thaxians might know about other alien species and other worlds. If humans could prove they were not afraid of water, it might open up entirely new possibilities for exploration and colonization. The journey to the Thaxian station took 2 days, and during that time the crew learned more about their new alien contacts. The Thaxians came from a desert world where water only existed deep underground in small amounts. Their bodies were covered in scales that would absorb water instantly and cause them to expand until they burst. To them, water was literally poison. They had built their entire civilization around avoiding water. Their ships were designed to stay as far away from water worlds as possible. They had marked thousands of planets as forbidden death zones, simply because they had oceans or large lakes. The Thaxians had been exploring space for over 1,000 years, but had never once tried to land on a water world. When the shuttle docked with the Thaxian station, Captain Dayho was amazed by what he saw. Everything was built from materials that repelled water. The air was completely dry and recycled constantly to remove any moisture. The Thaxians themselves looked like walking lizards covered in desert-colored scales. They moved nervously around the humans and kept checking scanners to make sure no water had come aboard their station. Commander Vorthak was taller than the other Thaxians and wore ceremonial armor decorated with symbols that looked like warnings about danger. He spoke through a translator device, and his first words were questions about how humans survived their terrible water-filled homeworld. Ambassador. Cho began explaining human evolution and how life on Earth had begun in the oceans. She told them about fish and whales and dolphins and all the creatures that lived happily in water. The Thaxians listened with expressions that showed they thought she was describing the most horrifying nightmare imaginable. Dr. Park brought out her portable aquarium filled with goldfish from Earth. The Thaxians immediately backed away and several of them made alarm sounds. Vorthak demanded to know why she had brought death creatures to their station. She explained that the fish were harmless and actually quite beautiful, but the Thaxians refused to come within 10 meters of the tank. The meeting continued for hours as both species tried to understand each other. The humans learned that the Thaxians had built a confederation of dozens of species, all united by their fear of water worlds. They had maps showing thousands of unexplored planets that they considered too dangerous to visit because they contained large amounts of water. Captain Daiho felt like a submarine commander who had discovered an ocean full of treasure that no one else dared to explore. He asked Vorthak if humans could have permission to visit these forbidden water worlds. The Thaxian commander was shocked by the request and said it would be like asking permission to commit suicide. As the meeting ended, both sides agreed to continue talking and learning about each other. The Thaxians were fascinated and terrified by human descriptions of swimming and diving. The humans were amazed to discover they had found their perfect niche in a galaxy full of aliens who feared the very thing that made humans feel most at home. When they returned to the Jeju Hope, the crew spent hours talking about what this discovery meant for humanity's future in space. They had found aliens who would gladly give them access to countless water worlds that had never been explored. All they had to do was prove that humans really could survive and thrive in the most dangerous environment the galaxy had ever known. 3 weeks after first contact, the formal meeting took place on a Thaxian diplomatic station orbiting a desert moon. The station was massive and built entirely from materials that would never absorb moisture. Dr. Yoon Ji-soo had joined the human delegation as their cultural expert, and she spent the journey studying everything they had learned about Thaxian society. Pilot Nam Ki-woo flew the shuttle carrying the diplomatic team, and he could not stop thinking about the irony of the situation. He had earned his astronaut certification after years of training that included extensive underwater survival courses. The idea that an entire galactic civilization was afraid of water seemed impossible to him, but the evidence was right in front of them. The Thaxian station welcomed them with elaborate ceremonies that involved checking every human for traces of moisture. Thaxian diplomat Zephyra led the cultural exchange, and she seemed less frightened of humans than most of her species, but she still maintained a safe distance whenever possible. Ambassador Cho presented the Thaxians with gifts from Earth, but had to be very careful about what she chose. No flowers because they contained water, no fruits or anything organic. Instead, she brought crystals and metals and synthetic materials that would not alarm their hosts. The Thaxians responded with gifts of their own, including star charts showing the locations of forbidden water worlds. Dr. Yoon studied these charts with growing excitement. There were thousands of planets marked with warning symbols that meant death by water contamination. Each one represented a potential new home for humanity. She began calculating how many people could be relocated to these worlds and how much resources they might contain. Zephyra agreed to show the humans their virtual reality chambers, where young Thaxians learned about the dangers of the universe. The humans put on the alien headsets and suddenly found themselves experiencing the Thaxian perspective of water worlds. In their simulation, water was shown as a glowing poison that dissolved anything it touched. Oceans appeared as vast pools of acid that sent up deadly vapors. Rain was depicted as bullets of liquid death falling from the sky. Nam Kiwu removed his headset and laughed, which startled all the Thaxians in the room. He tried to explain that humans actually enjoyed being in rain and that children played in it for fun. The Thaxians looked at him like he was describing the most extreme form of torture imaginable. Dr. Park had prepared a presentation about life on Earth using carefully selected footage that would not completely terrify their hosts. She started with images of humans drinking water and washing their hands. Even these simple activities caused several Thaxians to leave the room in distress. She showed them pictures of swimming pools and explained that humans built special containers just to hold water so they could enter it for pleasure. Vorthak interrupted the presentation to ask if humans were perhaps immune to water through some kind of advanced technology. He could not understand how beings could survive direct contact with such a dangerous substance without protective equipment. Dr. Park explained that human skin was naturally waterproof, and that contact with water was not only safe but necessary for human health. The revelation that humans required water to survive sent shockwaves through the Thaxian delegation. They had been assuming that humans were just incredibly brave and reckless. Learning that water was actually essential for human life made them realize they were dealing with a completely alien form of existence. Zephyra brought out the official Thaxian database of habitable worlds and showed them how each planet was rated for safety. Any world with more than 10% water coverage was automatically classified as uninhabitable. Worlds with oceans were marked with the highest danger warnings and had been completely avoided for over a millennium. Captain Lee studied the database and realized that the Thaxians had probably missed dozens of worlds that could support human colonies. Their fear had blinded them to the possibility that water worlds might actually be paradise for other species. He asked permission to share human data about Earth's ecosystems and the incredible diversity of life that water made possible. The Thaxians agreed to watch human documentation about marine life, but insisted on viewing it through multiple safety barriers. They set up a special chamber where they could observe without risk of contamination. Dr. Park showed them footage of whales and dolphins and fish and coral reefs. The Thaxians watched in horrified fascination as creatures swam gracefully through what they considered to be liquid death. Engineer Kim had brought technical specifications for human submarines and underwater habitats. He explained how humans had built entire research stations on the ocean floor and how they used water as a source of power and transportation. The Thaxians examined his blueprints like they were studying weapons of mass destruction. Dr. Yoon began documenting Thaxian cultural responses to water-related concepts and discovered that their entire language contained hundreds of words for different types of danger related to moisture. They had no words for swimming or diving or any activities that involved voluntary contact with water. Their literature and art showed water only as a force of destruction and death. The humans learned that the Thaxian Confederation included 12 different species, and all of them shared the same fear of water worlds. Some species were even more sensitive than the Thaxians, and would die from contact with water vapor in the air. Others could survive brief exposure to small amounts of moisture, but none of them could imagine actually entering a body of water and surviving. As the cultural exchange continued, both sides began to understand the magnitude of what they had discovered. The Thaxians had access to detailed maps of thousands of star systems, but had never explored any worlds with significant water content. The humans had the ability to colonize and study worlds that an entire galactic civilization considered to be certain death. Zephyra privately confessed to Ambassador Cho that many young Thaxians had always wondered about the forbidden worlds, but none had ever been brave enough to suggest exploring them. The discovery that beings could actually thrive on water worlds was challenging thousands of years of cultural conditioning about what was possible in the universe. Nam suggested that humans could serve as explorers and scouts for water worlds while sharing any discoveries with their Thaxian allies. This would allow the Confederation to benefit from resources on these worlds without having to overcome their deep-seated fears about water exposure. The Thaxians proposed a trial partnership where humans would be granted exclusive access to explore a single water world while Thaxian scientists observed from a safe orbital distance. If the humans could prove they could establish a successful colony without dying from water contamination, then perhaps the partnership could be expanded to include more worlds. Captain Lee volunteered to lead the first human expedition to an alien water world. He had spent his career exploring underwater environments and felt confident that human expertise would allow them to succeed where other species feared to try. The Thaxians selected a world they called Forbidden Blue, which contained vast oceans and small continents. Dr. Park immediately began planning the biological surveys they would conduct on this new world. She wondered what kind of marine life might have evolved in alien oceans, and whether humans could safely interact with underwater ecosystems that had developed independently of Earth. The formal agreement was signed in a ceremony that required extensive decontamination procedures to ensure no moisture from the humans accidentally contaminated the Thaxian station. Both sides agreed to share all discoveries and to respect each other's limitations regarding water exposure. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ship, Zephyra made an unprecedented request. She asked if she could visit the human vessel while wearing full environmental protection to observe how beings could live so close to stored water without dying. This would be the first time any Thaxian had voluntarily approached a water-containing environment. The successful diplomatic exchange marked the beginning of an alliance that would change both civilizations. Humans had found their unique role in a galaxy full of species who feared the very environment where humans felt most comfortable. The Thaxians had discovered that their maps of forbidden worlds were actually treasure maps leading to planets perfect for human colonization. The planet Kepler 442b stretched out beneath them like a blue jewel covered in swirling white clouds. Captain Lee stood in the observation deck of the orbital station, watching the world that would become humanity's first alien water colony. The Thaxians had named it Forbidden Blue, and had never sent even a probe to its surface, because their scanners showed it was 90% ocean. Dr. Lim Yebin arrived at the station aboard the research vessel New Busan, carrying equipment that made the Thaxians nervous just by existing. She had spent her career exploring Earth's deepest ocean trenches, and was excited about the possibility of discovering what alien seas might contain. Her diving gear and underwater cameras were carefully sealed in containers that the Thaxians insisted be kept in isolated storage bays. Marine Sergeant Kwon Sungmin commanded the security team that would protect the new colony. He had trained with Korean Special Forces in underwater combat and survival before joining the Space Marine Corps. The idea of establishing humanity's first military presence on an alien water world filled him with pride and determination. Technician Oh Jinho was responsible for setting up the underwater habitats and life support systems that would allow humans to live beneath alien seas. He had designed most of the equipment himself, based on Korean submarine technology and deep-sea research platforms. The Thaxians studied his blueprints with the same fascination they might show for impossible alien artifacts. The Thaxian observation ships maintained a safe distance of several thousand kilometers while monitoring every move the humans made. Commander Vorthak transmitted daily warnings about the dangers of water exposure and repeatedly offered to evacuate the human team if they came to their senses and realized they were attempting suicide. The first landing shuttle touched down on a small island in the middle of Forbidden Blue's largest ocean. Captain Lee was the first human to step onto the surface of an alien water world, and he immediately knelt down to touch the sand and smell the salt air. The ocean here was a strange green color, unlike Earth's blue seas, but it moved in familiar waves that reminded him of home. Dr. Lim took the first samples of alien seawater and found that it contained mineral compositions unlike anything on Earth, but was still fundamentally water with dissolved salts and organic compounds. The alien ocean was actually less dangerous than many Earth seas that contained toxic algae or dangerous chemicals from human pollution. Sergeant Kwon established a security perimeter around the landing site while his team set up the first temporary shelters. They had trained for this mission by practicing underwater colony establishment in Earth's oceans, but the alien environment presented new challenges, including different gravity and atmospheric pressure. The real breakthrough came when O began assembling the first underwater habitat in the shallow waters near their island base. Thaxian scientists watched through long-range telescopes as humans voluntarily entered the alien ocean, wearing only basic diving gear. The sight of humans swimming freely in what the Thaxians considered to be liquid death sent shockwaves through. The observation fleet Dr. Lim made the first dive to explore the alien seafloor and discovered something incredible. The ocean bottom was covered in structures that looked artificial but had been built by some unknown species that was no longer present. Ruins of what appeared to be an ancient underwater civilization stretched across the seafloor as far as her lights could reach. The discovery of alien ruins beneath Forbidden Blue's oceans forced the Thaxians to confront the possibility that water worlds might not only support life, but could actually be home to advanced civilizations. They had assumed for centuries that any species capable of space travel would naturally avoid water-contaminated environments. Captain Lee led the first expedition into the underwater ruins using submersible vehicles that O had modified for alien ocean conditions. They found evidence of a sophisticated culture that had built cities beneath the waves and had developed technology specifically designed for underwater use. The alien architects had clearly been comfortable living completely submerged in water. Sergeant Quan established the first human underwater military outpost in one of the larger alien structures. His team adapted quickly to three-dimensional combat in an environment where up and down were relative concepts and where movement required understanding of buoyancy and water resistance. The Thaxians requested permission to send down automated probes to study the ruins from a safe distance. They were fascinated by the possibility of learning about alien technology, but remained terrified of any direct contact with the water environment. Their probes were heavily shielded and designed to avoid any possibility of water contamination. Dr. Lim discovered that the alien oceans contained life forms that had never been seen before. Creatures that seemed to be a mixture of plants and animals moved through the water using bioluminescent displays for communication. Some of the larger organisms showed signs of intelligence and appeared to be curious about the human visitors. O expanded the underwater colony by connecting multiple habitat modules that allowed humans to live and work beneath the alien sea for extended periods. The colony included laboratories where Dr. Lim could study her specimens and workshops where new equipment could be built using resources extracted from the ocean floor. The breakthrough moment came when Zephyra convinced the Thaxian Council to allow her to visit the surface station while wearing full environmental protection. She arrived in a specially designed shuttle that was completely sealed against moisture and wore a suit that covered every scale on her body. Her first view of humans swimming freely in the alien ocean was a life-changing experience that challenged everything she had been taught about the impossibility of waterworld survival. She watched Dr. Lim dive beneath the surface and emerge minutes later carrying samples of alien marine life. The sight of a being voluntarily entering water and returning alive seemed to violate the fundamental laws of biology as Thaxians understood them. Captain Lee invited Zephyra to observe the underwater colony through a viewing window in the surface station. She saw humans moving comfortably through water-filled corridors and working in laboratories surrounded by the substance her species considered to be the most dangerous in the universe. The experience forced her to question whether the Thaxian understanding of waterworlds had been completely wrong. Sergeant Quan demonstrated underwater combat techniques by staging a training exercise in full view of the Thaxian observation post. His Marines moved through the water with precision and skill that amazed the alien observers who had never imagined that any species could function effectively while surrounded by liquid. The discovery of additional ruins in deeper parts of the ocean suggested that the ancient civilization had been even more advanced than initially suspected. Dr. Lim found evidence of underwater agriculture and manufacturing that indicated the aliens had not just survived in water, but had built their entire society around aquatic life. O began construction of the first permanent underwater city designed specifically for human habitation on an alien world. The city would serve as a base for exploring other water worlds and would demonstrate to the Thaxians that humans could establish thriving colonies in environments they considered uninhabitable. The success of the Forbidden Blue colony marked a turning point in human-Thaxian relations. The aliens were forced to acknowledge that their maps of deadly water worlds were actually guides to potential human territories. They began to see humans not as reckless daredevils, but as the key to unlocking resources and knowledge that had been forbidden to them for millennia. As news of the successful colony spread through Thaxian space, other species in the Confederation began to express interest in partnerships with humans. They realized that water worlds might contain valuable resources and ancient secrets that could only be accessed by beings capable of surviving aquatic environments. The first human children, born in the underwater colony, would grow up as true natives of an alien water world. They would swim in alien seas and explore ruins built by species that had vanished long before humans left Earth. These children would represent the beginning of humanity's transformation into a truly galactic species specialized in the exploration and colonization of water worlds that other aliens could never hope to inhabit. 2 years after the establishment of the Forbidden Blue Colony, the alliance between humans and the Thaxian Confederation had grown into something neither species had imagined possible. Admiral Bayek Sunho arrived at the expanded orbital station, aboard the flagship Sol's Pride, to oversee what had become humanity's first interstellar waterworld territory. Dr. Hans Somin had developed revolutionary viewing technology that allowed Thaxians to study underwater environments without risk of contamination. Her observation pods used advanced shielding and remote sensors to give Thaxian scientists their first safe glimpse into the alien world beneath the waves. The pods looked like metal bubbles that could descend into the ocean while maintaining perfect isolation from the surrounding water. Captain Song Min-jae commanded the first joint exploration mission that would visit 3 more water worlds identified by Thaxian surveys as particularly dangerous death zones. His mixed crew included both human aquatic specialists and Thaxian orbital support personnel who would coordinate the mission from safe distances above each world's surface. The formal alliance had been signed in a ceremony that required months of preparation to accommodate both species' needs. The treaty granted humans exclusive rights to explore and colonize any world that was more than 50% water, in exchange for sharing all discoveries and providing the Confederation with access to resources that could be safely extracted from these worlds. Thaxian maps revealed the locations of over 3,000 water worlds that had been marked as forbidden zones and avoided for centuries. Each world represented a potential new home for humanity and a source of knowledge that might revolutionize understanding of how life developed in aquatic environments throughout the galaxy. Admiral Beck established the new Waterworld Colonial Authority with headquarters in the underwater city of New Mokpo on Forbidden Blue. The city had grown to house over 10,000 human colonists who worked as marine biologists, researchers, underwater engineers, and deep-sea miners extracting valuable minerals from the ocean floor. Dr. Han's observation pods had enabled the first Thaxian scientists to study living aquatic ecosystems without risking water exposure. Their research revealed that water worlds consistently showed higher biodiversity and more complex ecological relationships than any dry world environments they had previously studied. The joint exploration missions discovered that many supposedly dead water worlds actually contained hibernating ecosystems that could be awakened under the right conditions. Captain Song's team found worlds where entire ocean systems had gone dormant during climate changes but still contained preserved genetic material that could be revived. Sergeant Kwan had been promoted to colonel and now commanded the Space Marine Aquatic Division, which specialized in underwater combat and security operations on water worlds. His forces had established bases on 12 different worlds and had become experts in three-dimensional warfare in liquid environments. The most significant discovery came when Dr. Lim's deep-sea exploration team found intact alien technology in the deepest ocean trenches of a world the Thaxians called Drowning Hell. The ancient machines were still functional after millions of years underwater and appeared to be some kind of galactic navigation system that used water-based calculations. Commander Vorthak had overcome enough of his species' natural fears to establish a permanent orbital research station above New Mokpo, where Thaxian scientists could work closely with human researchers while maintaining safe distance from the water surface. The station became a symbol of cooperation between species with completely different environmental needs. The breakthrough in understanding came when human linguists working with Thaxian historians discovered references to an ancient galactic empire called the Deep Ones, who had ruled vast areas of space before disappearing without explanation. All references to this empire had been dismissed by modern aliens because they seemed to describe impossible beings who lived entirely underwater. Dr. Han developed larger observation complexes that could house entire Thaxian research teams for extended periods while they studied waterworld ecosystems. These facilities included sophisticated life support systems that maintained perfect dryness while allowing detailed observation of aquatic environments through multiple layers of protective barriers. The economic benefits of the alliance became clear when human deep-sea mining operations began extracting rare minerals that were abundant on water worlds but had been inaccessible to Thaxian technology. These materials were essential for advanced space travel, but had been extremely expensive because they could only be found in small quantities on dry worlds. Captain Song's exploration teams made contact with the first living members of aquatics, species that had survived from the ancient Deep One's empire. These beings had been hibernating in the deepest ocean trenches for millions of years, waiting for someone capable of underwater communication to find them. The surviving Deep Ones possessed technology and knowledge that revolutionized both human and Thaxian understanding of space travel. Their navigation systems used principles based on fluid dynamics that could calculate faster-than-light travel routes with incredible precision. They had built their entire civilization around the concept that water was the perfect medium for both life and advanced technology. Admiral Bayek negotiated new treaties that established humanity as the official water world specialists for an expanding alliance that now included over 30 different species from the Confederation. Each species contributed their own expertise, while humans provided access to the aquatic environments that contained the galaxy's most advanced ancient technology. The Thaxian Council formally recognized the Waterworld Colonial Authority as an independent human government with rights equal to any other member of the Confederation. This made humans the first species to gain political recognition specifically, because of their ability to survive in environments that other species considered uninhabitable. Dr. Lim became the galaxy's leading expert on aquatic xenobiology and established research stations on 50 different water worlds where teams of human scientists studied alien marine life that had never been cataloged by any previous expedition. Her discoveries included intelligent species that had developed complex societies entirely underwater. The cultural exchange programs allowed young Thaxians to observe human aquatic activities through advanced simulation systems that gave them safe virtual experiences of swimming and diving. These programs helped reduce the species-wide phobia that had prevented Thaxian civilization from exploring water worlds for thousands of years. Colonel Kwan's Marines discovered that several water worlds contained hostile aquatic species that had been using the oceans as bases for attacking dry world civilizations. The human ability to fight effectively underwater allowed them to eliminate threats that had plagued the Confederation for centuries. The alliance expanded when other galactic civilizations learned about human capabilities in aquatic environments. Species from distant star systems began requesting human assistance in exploring water worlds in their own territories in exchange for technology and resources that Earth needed for its expanding colonial empire. Dr. Han's research led to the development of hybrid technologies that combined human underwater engineering with Thaxian space travel systems. These innovations made it possible to build spacecraft that could function both in space and underwater, allowing for seamless exploration of worlds that contained both terrestrial and aquatic environments. The success of the waterworld colonies attracted human emigrants from Earth who wanted to be part of humanity's expansion into environments where they could be truly unique in the galaxy. Entire families moved to underwater cities, where children grew up swimming in alien seas and learning to navigate in three-dimensional aquatic environments. The Deep Ones shared their historical records, which revealed that the galaxy had once been dominated by aquatic civilizations that built vast underwater cities connected by ocean-spanning transportation networks. These empires had collapsed when climate changes dried up many worlds, but their technology and knowledge had been preserved in the deepest ocean trenches. As the Alliance entered its third year, Admiral Bayek oversaw the establishment of the Galactic Aquatic Research Institute, which brought together scientists from dozens of species to study water-world ecosystems and ancient aquatic technologies. Humans served as the field researchers, while other species contributed theoretical knowledge and advanced analysis techniques. The transformation of humanity's role in galactic civilization was complete when the Confederation Council voted to establish the Waterworld Protection Treaty, which designated all aquatic environments as special conservation zones that could only be explored by species with proven aquatic survival capabilities. 5 years had passed since first contact, and Governor Lee Daeho stood on the observation deck of New Mokpo, watching Thaxian children play in specially designed shallow pools under the careful supervision of their environmental suits. The sight would have been impossible to imagine when he first met Commander Vorthok, but now it represented the transformation of an entire galactic civilization's understanding of water and life. Chancellor Park Minji had been elected to head the Galactic Aquatic Sciences Institute, which now operated research stations on over 200 water worlds throughout Confederation space. Her work had documented thousands of new species and had proven that aquatic environments consistently produced more advanced and diverse life forms than any dry world ecosystems. Admiral Bayek Sunho commanded a fleet of hybrid vessels that could operate both in space and underwater, allowing human crews to explore water worlds that contained both surface and deep ocean environments. His ships had become the primary exploration force for discovering new water worlds in previously unexplored regions of the galaxy. Ambassador Cho Hyeri served as the human representative to the expanded Galactic Council, which now included over 100 species from across the galaxy who had joined the alliance specifically to gain access to human expertise in water world exploration and colonization. The moment that changed everything came when Dr. Lim's deep-sea archaeology team discovered the master navigation chamber in the deepest ocean trench on a world the Thaxians had called Ultimate Death. The chamber contained a complete star map of the ancient Deep One's empire, showing the locations of water worlds throughout the entire galaxy, including regions that modern civilization had never explored. The star map revealed that the galaxy contained over 50,000 water worlds that had been inhabited by advanced aquatic civilizations before the great climate changes that drove most species to seek refuge on dry worlds. Each of these worlds potentially contained technology and knowledge that could revolutionize space travel and scientific understanding. Commander Vorthak had overcome his species' natural fears enough to establish a permanent residence on the orbital station above New Mokpo, where he worked as the primary liaison between human waterworld colonies and Thaxian space-based support systems. His transformation from fearful alien to trusted partner symbolized the changes occurring throughout Confederation society. The discovery of the ancient navigation technology led to the development of new, faster-than-light travel systems that used principles of fluid dynamics discovered in Deep One's archives. These systems allowed spacecraft to travel vast distances by navigating through space as if it were an ocean, using currents and flows that had been invisible to previous technology. Thaxian young people began volunteering for limited water exposure, training programs that allowed them to work more closely with human researchers while wearing advanced protective equipment. These volunteers became the first members of their species to willingly enter aquatic environments, and their courage inspired others to overcome millennia of inherited fears. The economic transformation of the galaxy became clear when human mining. Operations on water worlds began producing materials that were essential for advanced technology, but had been nearly impossible to obtain from dry world sources. The availability of these materials led to technological advances that benefited every species in the Confederation. Dr. Han's latest observation systems allowed entire Thaxian families to visit water-world environments through immersive virtual reality that gave them safe experiences of swimming and underwater exploration. These systems helped reduce the cultural trauma associated with water exposure and allowed Thaxian society to begin accepting that water worlds were not instruments of death, but sources of life and knowledge. The first contact with surviving Deep One's communities led to cultural exchanges that revealed the true history of galactic civilization. The ancient aquatic empires had been the galaxy's first spacefaring civilizations and had developed technologies that modern species were only beginning to understand. Captain Song's exploration fleets had discovered evidence of active Deep Ones, civilizations in distant galaxies that had maintained their aquatic technologies and were eager to re-establish contact with other spacefaring species. These discoveries suggested that humanity's role as aquatic specialists might extend far beyond the boundaries of the local galaxy. The establishment of the Waterworld University on New Mokpo created the galaxy's first institution of higher learning, specifically designed for aquatic environment research and education. Students from dozens of species came to study in underwater classrooms where they could observe marine ecosystems while learning about the principles that governed life in aquatic environments. Colonel Kwan's Aquatic Defense Forces had become the galaxy's primary military organization for protecting water worlds from hostile species that had been using ocean environments as hidden bases for centuries. The human ability to fight effectively underwater had eliminated threats that had plagued galactic civilization for thousands of years. The Cultural Revolution reached its peak when the first Thaxian volunteered to undergo partial genetic modification that would allow limited underwater survival. The volunteer was a young scientist named Typhon who had been inspired by human achievements and wanted to become the first of his species to experience direct contact with water without environmental protection. The success of Typhon's modification led to the development of technologies that could allow other species to safely experience aquatic environments for limited periods. This breakthrough meant that water worlds could become tourist destinations and research sites for beings who had previously been unable to visit them. Dr. Lim's discovery of intelligent cetacean-like species on multiple water worlds led to the establishment of the first interspecies aquatic communication protocols. These species had developed complex societies entirely underwater and possessed knowledge about ocean ecosystems that even humans had never imagined. The transformation of the galaxy's understanding of habitability was complete when the Galactic Council voted to reclassify water worlds from dangerous death zones to priority exploration targets. The new classification meant that water-rich planets would receive the highest funding for research and colonization efforts. Governor Lee stood beside Commander Vorthak watching human and Thaxian children play together in the shallow pools of New Mokpo's cultural center. The Thaxian children wore protective suits, but they were laughing and splashing in ways that would have been unthinkable just years before. Their play represented the beginning of a new era where the galaxy's greatest fears had become sources of wonder and discovery. The star maps left by the Deep Ones pointed toward distant galaxies where entire civilizations had developed around aquatic principles. Admiral Bayek was already planning the first intergalactic expedition that would use human aquatic expertise to make contact with civilizations that other species could never reach. Chancellor Park announced the discovery of water worlds in nearby galaxies that contained ecosystems unlike anything found in local space. These worlds represented the next frontier for human exploration and the expansion of galactic civilization into environments that had been completely inaccessible to previous exploration efforts. The alliance between humans and the Thaxian Confederation had grown into a galactic empire spanning thousands of star systems and including over 500 different species. At the center of this empire were the water worlds that humans had, transformed from forbidden death zones into the galaxy's most valuable real estate. The Korean naming system had been adopted as the standard for waterworld star charts, with new discoveries receiving names that honored the maritime traditions of Earth's Korean peninsula. New Busan, New Jeju, and New Mokpo had become major population centers, while Korean became the common language for aquatic research and exploration. Ambassador Cho presided over the signing of the Universal Waterworld Protection Accords, which established humanity as the permanent guardians of all aquatic environments throughout known space. The accords recognized that human expertise in waterworld survival made them uniquely qualified to protect and explore these precious environments. The final scene showed Governor Lee and Commander Vorthak swimming together in the harbor of New Mokpo, with Vorthak wearing a new type of environmental suit that allowed him to move freely underwater while maintaining complete protection from water contact. Their friendship symbolized the transformation of an entire galaxy's relationship with the environments that had once been considered too dangerous to approach. The message received from distant galaxies confirmed that aquatic civilizations existed throughout the universe and were eager to welcome humans as the ambassadors who could bridge the gap between water-based and land-based species. Humanity had found its unique role in a universe where their greatest strength was their comfort in the environment that terrified every other known form of intelligent life.